Hi, this is Peter Woolfolk speaking. Now, first of all, thank you so very much for listening to the podcast. Now, I am very excited to let you know that the podcast is now available on Amazon Alexa. You know the drill. Simply say, Alexa, play Public Relations Review Podcast, and she'll take it from there. And again, thank you for listening. And if you enjoy the program, please become a subscriber. Now, on to the podcast.
Welcome. This is the Public Relations Review Podcast, a program to discuss the many facets of public relations with seasoned professionals, educators, authors, and others. Now, here is your host, Peter Woolfolk.
Welcome to the Public Relations Review Podcast and to our listeners across America and around the world. Now, as you know, we usually have public relations professionals from cities across the nation as our guests to discuss a wide range of topics. Today, however, I'll be speaking to a public relations professional of the future. And she is a student at Western Kentucky University, and she's joining us today from roughly the Bowling Green, Kentucky area. So first, let me have her introduce herself. Then I'll come back and ask her why she selected public relations as a career and what she'd like to do in that very first job. Mary Carol, introduce yourself.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. Hello, guys. I am a junior at Western currently, and my name is Mary Carol. Excited to be here.
Well, good. So why did you select public relations as perhaps a career that you would like to get into?
I first started looking into public relations when I realized how much of what I love revolves around it. I am a photographer and own my own photography business, and quite honestly, my dream job would be running PR for one of the national park services across the United States. And once I realized that is a position I could hold, I thought, what the heck? This is what I need to be dedicating my time and my education to.
Now, what have you learned in your public relations classes that has begun to help you, let's say, visualize and see that what you've selected is really going to work for you?
Something that we've been talking a lot about recently in my courses is how public relations and ethics tie in hand to hand, and how spreading across a message that is both true and is said in a way that the audience doesn't have a lot of questions and it doesn't lead to the wrong kind of assumptions is something that I've really enjoyed learning about, and it's something that's really interesting to me, just because if you're going to be putting a message out there, it needs to be something from the heart and true, which I think public relations learning about has taught me so much about that.
Well, not only it'll also help you construct the message for particular audiences that you're trying to reach as well.
Yes, absolutely.
But, getting back to ethics, it's vitally important because, as you probably know, if, in fact, people find what you or your company or your organization, they find some unethical something or feel something unethical is going on, you can lose a lot of, obviously your reputation can go to tatters real quick, and it's very, very difficult sometimes to recover from something like that.
Right, yes. I'm home right now, and it's interesting how many things that, whether it's a scandal or just something misspoken, has become a conversation at our dinner table. And I so quickly think back to how it's a public relations catastrophe for an organization or for a company just because of one simple mistake.
Now, how have you been in class with your classmates there for a while now? What are some of the other career goals, if I should maybe put it like that some of your other classmates have that you know about?
We have a couple writers who hope to be journalistic writers, which is a wonderful thing that we've been able to learn about, is the journalistic side of PR and how that intertwines. One of my best friends who's in public relations is aspiring to be in the wedding planning industry, and she is absolutely loving having event planning and public relations tying together.
So in terms of some of the classes and experiences that you've had, what has been for you the most enjoyable part of some of this? Let's say some of the experiences and other learning activities that you've had thus far.
Quite frankly, it's talking to people just like you. It's getting to understand what the industry is outside of the classroom setting, because we can sit and have wonderful discussions and learn how to write press releases and how to interact with different newspapers and different news stations and all of that, but actually getting to have conversations with people who are either in public relations or are dedicated to it or know a lot about it, it just always proves to be something so worthwhile, because then you can understand more about what you hope to go into and more of the people that are within that field.
Now, have you had any real challenges in terms of, let's say, maybe you've had to put together some sort of a project for some of your public relations classes? And if so, what were some of those projects that you had to put together?
Yes, we've been working a lot on press releases and letters to the editor, both of which have been really interesting. I'm yet to get into my harder classes just because I am a junior, so I haven't had any tasks that are too challenging just yet, but I am certainly learning a lot from everything that we are doing.
Now, have you, I know that we had a chance to chat briefly earlier, have you guys had an opportunity to do any sort of internships in and around the school or the town there?
So we have 2 different publications on campus that we can work for, but as far as interview goes, there are options, but you seek those more so by yourself. So I have found a couple of different opportunities throughout Bowling Green just through Handshake and LinkedIn and advisors in public relations at Western, but as a class we haven't yet dove into that.
Okay, it sounds like we've had another guest to come on, so why don't the one that just came on identify yourself?
Hi, this is Nigel Taylor.
Oh, great. Nigel, how are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm sorry I got the wrong digit there, but I tell you what we've gotten started with, and perhaps you can jump in on this one, is could you give me a sort of an overview of what you'd like to do once you're actually going into the public relations world? What is your goal? What would you like to be doing in that arena?
So I kind of want to do more of like the investor relations, ideally. So kind of fulfilling an investor relations role in like a major corporation. It's like that's like my main, I guess, focus, if you will.
Obviously, PR covers almost everything you can be in, as you said, investor relations, healthcare, so forth and so on. I've run across people all over those arenas. So now, have you begun to get experience in those other areas thus far?
Not necessarily, just because it's kind of a hard, I guess, role to kind of crack into, if you will, on like a very entry level, like plane, I guess you could say. So I haven't really done any like investor relations work, but like done a lot of different finance things, and then I'm trying to kind of marry those two together in internships, but nothing specialized to investor relations per se.
Well, now, are you, let's say, a junior or senior? Just where are you in this process?
Yes. See, I have one more year left.
Okay. Well, now is the time, as I think you well know, is to look around and find out where you can as to get both of those experiences, because you're getting some of that training in school, but investor relations is an entirely different animal, and you need to obviously get in that environment as well so that you can understand exactly how things work with the nomenclature, what it is that they're talking about, and the routes that people take, not people, but investor relations folks take to distribute that information. So I can see that that's something that's going to be on your plate for the near future.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm trying to, like, any way that I kind of can, working with that, even if it's working, you know what I'm saying, at like a finance, like in a finance internship, but doing a lot of like their PR work to kind of see how exactly that kind of marries each other, and it will eventually turn into investor relations roles. So I'm trying to find those little different internships that have those niches if possible.
Mm-hmm. Well, the fact that both of you are juniors, it seems to me that now is the time, when the opportunity presents itself to actually look for those internships, because actually doing really supplements what it is you're learning, because you find that you can apply the public relations piece to wherever you are. Some of it might be a bit more critical, a bit more technical about it. The same as I had mentioned to you guys earlier, when I showed up in Congress for the first time, I knew how to do public relations. I just had to understand what they were talking about so that I could then explain it to So, I mean, it can be possible. And the transition is not that difficult. It just takes some time.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, I enjoyed talking to you guys today. And one of the things because I was just thinking about some things after that in terms of my my development. And part of it, as I said, in terms of whether it's public relations or anything else, you can learn a lot of this stuff. There's no question about that. But you want to get positioning yourself above other people because there's so many people that are in the public relations field. How do you begin to separate yourself? And that's the thing that I think I really want to impart to you and others that I talk to, because there are going to be a lot of people out there after the same jobs. And the better you can be at your presentation and the skills that you've got behind you begins to make a difference in terms of how decisions are made.
True.
Yes. I'm so glad that you brought that up while we were talking earlier on, because since then I've just been brainstorming in the career field or in a job interview setting, what are the ways that I can set myself apart from other people who have been to the same classes, that have learned the same things as I have. And it is such good perspective and a great way to think about it.
Mm-hmm. Now, you said you're in photography, right? Want to be in photography.
Yeah.
And
Did you say you wanted to see it?
No. One of the things I think about is that where can you have some of your photographs displayed?
Yes.
And it depends on the circumstances, too. For instance, because the PR side of things, I mean, are there magazines that perhaps you can take some photographs for, or that you can have some that would fit into sort of the stock photograph category that you can license them to use on your behalf? Those kinds of things. Maybe put up a website that displays your photographs. Or perhaps even find a gallery that's willing to let you show some of your work, things along those lines. Right.
Yes, these are exactly the avenues I need to be spending more time and working more creatively towards.
Mm-hmm. On the investor relations, sometimes whether it's a bank or an investment firm, maybe there's an opportunity for you to do an internship down there with some of those folks just to find out the nomenclature. How does this work? What are the different areas of investment banking or just investment or finance? And there's a lot of stuff going on out there.
Right. Yeah. I'm just trying to kind of crack into, I think I just chose the one kind of the many career fields and interests that are very hard to crack into on the entry level, because you do need kind of that platform of knowledge at first. So trying to navigate that has been a very interesting task. Because finance is the same thing. It's you have to, there's entry-level positions, but it's not until around now, your junior year, or even your senior year or so, where you can actually start to do some of those, because you have that base knowledge of it, and then you can do what you told us earlier, which is they'll tell you what they need to be done and how they want it done. But if you don't have that base knowledge, then it's we don't have time to teach you accounting 101, you know what I'm saying, over a summer internship.
Well, and in some cases you might be right, and it also depends upon how the size of the firm. Smaller firms, I see that perhaps might be a bit of a difficulty, but larger firms may have some sort of an internship there. The other thing that you might also look into, if you have not done it already, is to consider taking a finance class while you're still up there to get a feel for that.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's what my major was. So I was a triple major of, and one of them was, or is, anyway, finance. So that's kind of where I want those two to kind of blend in my career, the end point, I guess, or the peak of my career, sort of.
Well, it begins to sound like right now that you do have an understanding of how some of that stuff works, and
oh,
that
yeah,
is the case. Then I can certainly see the opportunity for you to get your foot in the door on something like that.
Yes, I'm hoping for it, for sure. At least this summer, trying to figure that out, given everything that's going on right now. But definitely trying to kind of push towards that and try to find something this summer now that I do have some of that kind of experience and knowledge, Now,
Nigel, where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Chicago, so West Chicagoland area anyway.
Mm-hmm. One of the things and tactics that I've used, again, because I worked on Capitol Hill, I see and I realize how important politicians are to basically the world around us. And what I mean when I say that is that where you live, you are a constituent for somebody, whether it's your congressman, your city councilman, or whoever it happens to be you are their constituent and you vote for them. They listen to you. But in order for them to do that, you have to show up.
Right.
So in some cases, maybe, and look, I'm telling you, it works if you, as I had mentioned earlier, if there's a campaign going, or maybe there's not a campaign going on, maybe you've got some time over the summer that you would like to come in and do certain things, maybe some of the PR work to understand how it works and what I can do to help, and how does a good press release? How do you, basically the other thing is, how do you pitch a story to the media? What makes them pay attention to it? And you can get that experience maybe with them, as long as you're a constituent, because I've used, as I said, having worked in politics before, I've used my knowledge of how politics works and actually won some business from it. Not because they specifically did anything for me, but what they did was to open some doors for me. If you pay attention, one of the things that you'll see is that city council people, members of Congress, when they call somebody, that person listens, and that person normally is the top person in the organization. Members of Congress don't call assistant vice presidents; they call the chairman, they call the president, and they get the phone calls taken. City council people do the same thing. So if you go to your city council person and you live in their district that you would like to, and maybe a little work has to go in. There's certain people I would like to meet. Is there a way that you can help make that introduction happen? You don't have to do anything else but open the door so I can get in. That's what I did. I said, all you need to do is open that door for me, and I'll stand or fall on my own. And that's when you have gotten your presentation together, your photographs laid out, what you've done with them. Here's what I intend to do. How can I help you use this? Or, I've taken these finance classes. Here's what I know about A, B, C, and D. And perhaps there's a way I can help you in some of these arenas. So, but now you're getting in front of people and you're presenting yourself, and they have a chance to hear what it is you have to say and how you can help them. That's the key. How can what you do help them, or that you want to help them succeed in what it is that they're doing? Those are the kinds of things that I suggest that you have an opportunity to do.
Yeah, I'm definitely whenever these things kind of like settle, I guess you could say, and normal face-to-face conversations are a thing again. I'm definitely kind of try and do that, and maybe look at some different campaigns that are kind of going on before I graduate, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing is planning too. Be prepared to have a discussion. Do not go in there with your hat in your hand, asking for a handout. You are there to help. That's what I said. You've got to be positive about this thing. I know I'm here to learn, but I'm good at it. Here's some of the stuff I've done, and I can bring this to help you do what it is you do.
Absolutely. Yes, that is the best way to come into the situation.
So are there some other things about public relations that you would like to know or think that would be beneficial to you and your growth and development?
I can let her go first if she has one right after it. If not, I have, I guess, a few.
Yes, you go ahead and go. I'm thinking.
All right, I got you. I guess kind of almost a theme of like what we've been talking about, right, which is kind of that first step. So I know you kind of told us a little bit, share some experiences about like kind of later on in your career, but like what about the beginning of your career, right? Where did that kind of start go? Like, or where did you just start from, basically, in public relations?
Well, quite honestly, again, a lot of things have happened to me by accident. And quite honestly, years ago, I used to work for the Xerox Corporation, and I was in sales at Xerox. And one of my accounts happened to be I'm originally from Washington, D.C., the D.C. public school system. So one day, for whatever reason, I was in the office of one of the school board members there, and she just happened to blurt out and said, well, look, would you be interested in helping me with my campaign? I hadn't thought too much about it, and somehow or another I sort of equated public relations and marketing or sales as the same thing. I said, certainly fine. So what she suggested that she needed somebody to help her do was to get out the press releases and so forth and so on. Well, I didn't know what a press release was, so I had to call somebody and ask them what was a press release, and I knew a few people who were in it, and they wrote a couple of them for me. So that basically was how I got started. what I liked about it was the creativity involved, that the fact I had a chance to think for myself, come up with ideas. And as a result of that, that led me to do some other PR sort of thing, related things for the public school system. And I learned, I kept asking people how to do things. It grew and it grew and it grew. Formal training, I never really had that. I learned, as I said, on the ground. I hit the ground running, and I learned every step of the way. I had a radio show. I had 3 of them. I learned radio as I went along. I learned. I had wound up having a TV show. I learned as I went along. So those kinds of things helped me start it. So I'm always asking and wasn't willing to. I didn't have a problem about learning and, sitting in the back to see how things are done. And it just kept growing. So whenever I had a chance to step in and learn something, I certainly took that. The fact that I had done radio, because of some people I met, they said, well, fine, my daughter works at this particular organization. Well, I went down to see her to let her know that I was in public relations and could I help your organization? Well, little did I know she was going to invite the guy who was the head of the communications office into that meeting. Well, because I had done some radio, the guy actually gave me a small contract basically to take a survey up for what people thought about this organization. And I did the survey, came back, and lo and behold, next thing I know, he offered me a job. Well, here I am now, I'm a media relations manager for the National Education Association. And because I had some television experience, I was the host of their closed circuit TV news. So it's little things like that whatever I could find that made sense to do, I got involved with it. And from there, that's when I went to Congress, because some folks knew that I had education background or education policy background, and that job came up. They said, you should go for it, and I did. So it's those kinds of things, if you can get your nose in the tent, so to speak, take it. Go for it. And maybe there's some online courses from time to time that you can take. If you belong to the Public Relations Society, the student section of it, maybe there's some online videos that can help you learn some additional things. But there are a lot of ways of getting started. So if you come up with ideas of your own, maybe refine them, run past a few people to make sure it makes sense, and then go pitch them to somebody, because you never know. When people say no to me, what that means is now is not the right time. So maybe I have to go back a different time to also perhaps retweak it a little bit and maybe come back at a later date. And you just never know. But never be afraid to reach out and take the chance.
Yes, I think that is such key advice, is to take the leap of at least trying, especially in the situation of this can help you in your future career, so why not?
Well, the other thing is you never know until you try, because the worst that they can say is no. And
right.
The fact that you never ask, you will never know whether you could have gotten that. And maybe, the timing might not be right all the time. I've had people say, well, the time is not right. I think if you could get back to me in a week or a month or whatever it happens to be, and I think we'll have a chance to chat then. But again, you don't know until you take that chance. So don't be willing at least to ask someone. So any other questions you guys might have to ask?
Well, I was just curious. So you mentioned earlier when we were chit-chatting that you stumbled upon podcasting, and it's something that you enjoy to do. What was originally your dream job? What did you want to set out as your career path when you were maybe around our age?
At one time when I was in school, I actually wanted to be an engineer. And I wanted to be an engineer because I could build the kits. They used to have electronic kits that could come out, and I could make a audio amplifier or something like that. I was interested in shortwave radio, all of that sort of stuff. In high school and a little bit after that. So, and quite honestly, I went to took classes in engineering, but that just didn't go very well because the mathematical side of it I just didn't have. So quite honestly, I wound up going into the military, and because I had the background in electronics, I wound up going to an electronics school. And then not only did I do well in that school, but also they wound up keeping me there as an instructor. So I wound up getting the public speaking skills. So I came out, and as I said, after that, I went back to school, went to Xerox, and it was then that I decided to that this public relations thing, I liked that a lot better. As a matter of fact, that was not only was I in school, but when I was actually going to started graduate school in finance. Somehow or another, I got this idea I wanted to learn how to fly. So, and because finance was dull, it's like watching grass grow or paint dry, something like that. It just didn't hold my attention. So I think after my first semester, I let it go, and I went to aviation school to get my pilot's license, just because I wanted to learn how to fly. So I've been flying for a bunch of years. So it changed from what I thought that I would want to do until, just you get out there and you do and you see things, you experience things, you find out that, well, maybe I need to tweak this a little bit more. But it could be exactly right on what it is you want. But in my case, it wound up changing.
Yes, absolutely. It's funny where life takes you once you try a couple different avenues.
Okay, Nigel, what did you have in mind?
When I was going to ask you, so I know you obviously are doing your podcast and a couple of different things with the education system, but I want to know, is it still, because I feel like, I guess the way it's portrayed sometimes that PR can be one of consulting and kind of a lot of different freelance work. What's kind of the truth to that? I guess you could say how true is that, or how close to the truth is that? And do you yourself you've been dealing with sometimes some different consulting for PR related jobs, contracts, etc.?
Oh, absolutely. Most of my work is in the government area, where I've done work with the airport, state of Tennessee, some of the other agencies. So and some smaller agencies. Well, I should say smaller, but we have actually done work for the National Opera. We were on the Music City contract here when that was up and running. The health department, and just as an individual, consulted with the presidents of some colleges and universities. Because one of the things about having experiences that a lot of their staff don't have. So I can supplement what other people do. I don't want to be the one, quite honestly, I don't want to be the one that's writing the press releases. That's not what I want to do. Bring me the big problems that you have. To give you an idea, I stumbled into this program that the Tennessee Supreme Court has. And what it is that they actually bring the entire Tennessee Supreme Court onto a college campus to hold real hearings. Now, there's a twofold benefit. The school benefits because, yes, we've got the Tennessee Supreme Court on our campus, and now we can invite all these high school kids in here to hear this, which gives us the chance to pitch the high school kids coming to our college. The other side is that the college kids, while they're there, can see the Supreme Court in action, and maybe they'll consider law as a career field. So I stumbled into that, found out where the next one was going to be held. I talked to somebody about how this program worked, found out the name of a president because the next one was going to be on the western side of Tennessee. Called the guy who put me in touch with the president of college out there. I called the guy up and asked him would he be interested in having the Tennessee Supreme Court come to his campus. Well, you know what that answer was. Oh, absolutely. But here's where confidence came in. I only knew what I saw, and I had gone down to talk to the people and what they told me how this program worked. So when the president of that college asked me to come down maybe a few weeks later to make a presentation, I went online and found information about it, some pictures and so forth, and called the people back that I knew and asked them some additional questions. But I had never had any real knowledge of it because I had not been there. But I went down there and I said, here's how this works, here's what's going to happen, and looked at the benefits that these schools have. Well, I got a contract from it. So the fact that I was willing to take that chance and at least do some homework. But the thing for me was I wanted to make sure that these people had confidence. So in the contract, the very first thing I wrote in my contract was, if I am not able to get the Supreme Court on your campus, you don't owe me a nickel. That for them made them feel good. Well, I didn't go that far without having talked to the people of the Supreme Court to find out, do you think this can really happen? They said, we think so. And that said to me, I will take the chance, man. And it worked.
Right. Because you had the slight backing, and then you just kind of transferred that to someone else, basically, for the contract anyway.
well, not only that, it's the fact that I had the confidence that it was going to happen, and the people knew that I was working on it, and they actually wanted this to happen too. But I had to give some confidence to those people, the president and his board people, that they didn't know me. I had never worked with them before. But the fact that I had the confidence to come down there and show and make a good, solid, professional presentation to them, put that caveat in there so that they wouldn't feel that I was there to take the money and run. So plus I don't invoice people anyway unless it depends on the length of the job. I always invoice you at the end of the month. It's never give me a little bit here and we'll go from there. It's always I'll invoice you at the end of the month. So I guess the answer to the question is that you look for opportunities. Sometimes they come to you and you just have to recognize that, hey, this is an opportunity. What can I do with this and how am I going to go about making this happen?
I guess with that too, kind of just on the more logistical side of things and like when it comes to like invoicing, et cetera, is I guess, and this is probably just me, it probably applies to a lot of other like freelancing consulting too, but like kind of knowing your worth in like the PR community and like atmosphere. How do you, I guess, almost like charging for freelance, is it like a thing that kind of like everyone has like a normal set, I guess, scale, or is it kind of just going based off of the job, et cetera? You know what I'm saying? So like I know like for instance for like financial advising, et cetera, like those things, right, that consulting looks a little bit different and like price wise and just like bracketing wise. Is the same thing for PR or is it a little bit different?
Well, it depends. Most PR agencies have fees, and they can charge you either by the hour, they can charge you by the month, or they can charge you by the project. So you set that up so that, and you find out what the client is most comfortable with. And quite honestly, the growing thing now is that they are getting away from charging by the hour, and this is a very short thing because those hours can go up real quick. Right. And it also depends upon what it is you're charging. You need to be able to have the background to back it up. Quite honestly, my fee is $200 an hour. But when I lay out the fact that here's what I've done, where I've been, and here's the successes that I've had, that's not a problem.
Right. At least your background justifies your quote.
And the work that I've done as well. I mean, so I have references. One of the key things that I've always done where I can, as a reference, is I get a client to write a letter for me, so that I can put it in my next proposal. And here's the nice thing about that is 90% of the time they say, well, can you jot down something that you'd like for me to say? Bingo.
Right. You know, so in fact, actually I can. I have a few things in mind.
Right. I mean, you don't want to go overboard with it, but I've done that several times, and they pretty much go word for word and put it on the letterhead and send it. That thing with the Tennessee Supreme Court, I asked the president of the college, would he mind writing? He said, well, tell me what you want me to say.
It's perfect, right?
And I wrote the letter out, and here it is, and I used it in proposal. So it's that sort of thing. The problem is, and I shouldn't say the problem, but you need to make sure that you have, depending upon what it is you want to charge, that you have something to back it up. If you are haven't had the experience, then fine. You maybe need to make a proposal as to, well, for this job, I'm going to charge you this amount of money, and there might be some negotiations there. I don't know, but you've got to be flexible, because part of what I say is I'd much rather have 10% of something than 100% of nothing. So you've got to be willing to negotiate, but at least, and that's why I say when you've got something that you can show people that here's some of the work I've done in the past, here's what other folks have comments on the work that I've done. And when you have that begins to give them some confidence. And then you can work out what the payment schedule will be. If it's going to be for a month, okay, say fine, I'll bill you part of it for the first 2 weeks, and then the end of the deal. So you have to be flexible in terms of working that out, and you just need to look around and ask other people who have the same sort of experience, what are they charging, or what are their fees, or how do they go about it, because there's nothing really set in stone. Well, ladies and gentlemen, any other questions you guys have?
All good from here.
Okay.
Same here.
Well, let me say I want to thank both Nigel and Mary Carol for joining us today on the Public Relations Review. And I'd also like to thank Professor Vicki Bagwell for all she's done for the Public Relations Department there. And I want to thank all of my listeners for joining us on this edition of the Public Relations Review. And if you enjoyed the show, please give us a very good review. And we look forward to having you join us on our very next program.
This podcast is produced by Communication Strategies, an award-winning public relations and public affairs firm headquartered in Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, this is Peter Woolfolk. First, let me say thank you so much for being a listener. Now, I want to alert you to our shiny new podcast website located at podpage.com. However, you can go directly to the podcast site located at publicrelationsreviewpodcast.com. There, you can contact me through email. You can leave a voice message. You can leave a review. You can read an episode blog and frequently learn about the podcast guests. You might also want to suggest podcast topic ideas or even suggest a guest. You can also let me know if you would like to receive our podcast listener logo that you can post on your social media. So I look forward to hearing from you about our new podcast website. Thank you so much for listening to the Public Relations Review podcast, and have a great day.